The fluorescent lights of Mama Rosa's diner flickered against the evening rain, casting uneven shadows across the worn linoleum floor. Maya Deluca wiped down table 6 for the third time, her small hands working methodically while her dark eyes tracked every customer in the cramped restaurant. At 8 years old, she moved through the dinner rush with the efficiency of someone twice her age, refilling water glasses and clearing plates while her parents shouted orders in rapid Italian from behind the counter. "Maya, table 3 needs more bread," her mother called out, not looking up from the steaming plates she was arranging. Rosa DeLuca's hair had escaped its bun hours ago, and sweat beaded on her forehead as she tried to keep up with the evening crowd. The restaurant was busier than usual, which should have been good news, but Maya could see the stress lines around her mother's eyes. Busy didn't always mean profitable when you were competing with 3 other Italian places on the same block. Maya grabbed a basket of bread and navigated between the tables, automatically checking each customer as she passed. Mrs. Chen at table 2 was picking at her chicken parmesan, probably because the sauce was too salty again. The college students at table 5 were sharing one entree and drinking endless refills of water. And the man at table 7, the one in the expensive suit, sat alone with his hands folded, waiting patiently for his order. She'd noticed him the moment he walked in 20 minutes ago. He was different from their usual customers, too well dressed for their neighborhood, too quiet. Most people who came to Mama Rosa's were either locals who'd been coming for years or tourists who'd wandered in by accident. This man seemed to belong to neither category. He'd ordered simply just the chicken marsala with no substitutions, and had been polite to her father when he took the order. But there was something about the way he held himself, the way his eyes swept the room when he thought no one was looking, that made Maya pay attention. "Maya!" Her father's voice cut through her observations. "Stop staring at the customers and help your mother." She hurried to the kitchen, where chaos reigned. Their regular cook had called in sick, leaving them with Tommy, a recent hire who spoke broken English and seemed overwhelmed by the dinner rush. Steam rose from multiple pans while her father, Giuseppe, tried to coordinate orders and work the grill simultaneously. The small kitchen felt even smaller with 3 people moving around each other, and Maya could see her parents were struggling. "The chicken marsala for table 7, her mother said, sliding a plate across the pass. "Tommy, you remembered no nuts, yes? The order says no nuts." Tommy nodded vigorously, but Maya caught the uncertain look in his eyes. She watched as he wiped his hands on a towel that had been used for everything, including the bread that definitely contained nuts. Her stomach tightened with a familiar anxiety. She'd learned to read these situations early. Had to. When you carried an EpiPen everywhere and knew that a single mistake could be serious, you developed a 6th sense about food preparation. "Mama." She started, but Rosa was already moving, balancing 3 plates on her arms as she headed for the dining room. Maya followed, her medical alert bracelet catching the light as she walked. She'd worn it since she was 4, after the incident with the peanut butter sandwich at preschool that had landed her in the emergency room. The memory was fuzzy now, but the fear in her parents' eyes that day had burned itself into her mind. Since then, she'd become an expert at reading ingredients, asking questions, and recognizing the signs of an allergic reaction. The man at table 7 looked up as her mother approached with his plate. He had kind eyes, Maya noticed, but there was something tired about them, like he'd seen too much. He thanked her mother in perfect English, with just a hint of an accent, and began to eat slowly, methodically. Maya busied herself clearing nearby tables, but kept glancing over. Something felt wrong. She couldn't put her finger on it, but the same instinct that had saved her life multiple times was now screaming warnings. She watched as the man took another bite, then paused. His hand went to his throat, almost unconsciously. That's when she saw it. The slight flush creeping up his neck. The way he swallowed hard, like his throat was tightening. The almost imperceptible wheeze when he breathed. "Excuse me," Maya said, abandoning the table she was clearing and walking directly to table 7. "Are you okay?" The man looked at her, and she could see confusion in his eyes, like he wasn't sure what was happening to his own body. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just..." His voice was slightly hoarse. "You're having an allergic reaction," Maya said matter-of-factly. "Your throat is swelling and your face is getting red. Do you have any food allergies?" He touched his throat again, and Maya could see the panic starting to set in as he realized she was right. "Nuts. I'm allergic to nuts. But I told them." "Tommy used the wrong oil," Maya said, already reaching for her small purse. "Or cross-contaminated something. It doesn't matter now. This is going to get worse fast. The man's breathing was becoming more labored, and other customers were starting to notice. Maya's parents appeared at her side, her mother's face pale with worry. "Maya, what's wrong?" Rosa asked. "He's having anaphylaxis," Maya said, pulling out her EpiPen. "Call 911. Now." "But that's yours," her father protested. "You need that." "I have 2. Maya lied smoothly. She actually had 3, but her parents didn't need to know that right now. "And he needs it more than I do." The man was struggling to breathe now, his lips taking on a bluish tinge. Maya had seen this progression before, in the mirror, and knew they had minutes at most. She looked up at him, her small hands steady, despite the chaos around them. "This is going to hurt a little, but it's going to save your life," she said, pulling the cap off the EpiPen. "Hold still." She pressed the device against his thigh, right through his expensive pants, and triggered the injection. The man gasped as the epinephrine hit his system, and Maya held the pen in place for the full 10 seconds, counting under her breath like the doctors had taught her. "Better?" she asked, pulling the pen away. The man nodded, his breathing already starting to ease. Color was returning to his face, and the panic in his eyes was being replaced by something else. Gratitude, but also a kind of amazement, like he couldn't quite believe what had just happened. The paramedics arrived within minutes, summoned by her father's frantic phone call. They took over with professional efficiency, checking the man's vitals and preparing to transport him to the hospital. As they loaded him onto the stretcher, he caught Maya's hand. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice still rough but stronger. "Maya," she said simply. "Maya." He repeated it like he was memorizing it. "Thank you. You saved my life." She shrugged, the way kids do when adults make a big deal out of something that seemed obvious. "You were dying. I had medicine. It wasn't complicated." The paramedic smiled at her response, but the man's expression was more complex. He studied her face for a long moment, like he was trying to understand something. "How old are you, Maya?" 8. He closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them, there was something different there. Something that looked almost like pain. 8 years old, he murmured, more to himself than to her. Then, louder. "Your parents raised a very special little girl." The paramedics wheeled him out into the rain, and Maya watched through the window as the ambulance pulled away, its red lights disappearing into the night. The restaurant had emptied during the commotion, leaving just her family and a few lingering customers who were still processing what they'd witnessed. "Madonna Mia," her mother whispered, pulling Maya into a tight hug. "You could have died if you'd needed that medicine, but I didn't need it," Maya said, her voice muffled against her mother's shoulder. And he did. What Maya didn't know, couldn't know, was that 20 blocks away, Vincent Torino was lying in a hospital bed, staring at the ceiling and thinking about an 8-year-old girl who had just saved the life of one of the most dangerous men in the city. The doctors were calling it a severe allergic reaction, a close call, a lucky save. But Vincent knew better. His lieutenant, Marco, sat in the chair beside the bed, his face grim. "It was the Benedetti family," he said quietly. "We got confirmation an hour ago. They paid the cook $5,000 to use peanut oil in your food." Vincent nodded slowly. He'd suspected as much. The Benedettis had been trying to move in on his territory for months, and poisoning was their style. Subtle, hard to trace, easy to write off as an accident. "The cook?" Vincent asked. "Disappeared. Probably halfway to Jersey by now." Vincent was quiet for a long moment, thinking about small hands holding an EpiPen steady, about dark eyes that had seen death approaching and hadn't hesitated to act, about a little girl who had given up her own safety net to save a stranger. "The girl," he said finally, "Maya. Find out everything about her. Her family. Where they live, where she goes to school. Everything." Marco frowned. "Boss, you're not thinking of." "The Benedettis will figure out what happened," Vincent interrupted. "They'll know someone saved me, and they'll want to know who. When they find out it was a kid." He trailed off, but Marco understood. "They'll come for her." "They'll come for her," Vincent confirmed. "And when they do, I'm going to be ready. He thought about the way Maya had looked at him, with no fear, no recognition of who he was or what he represented. To her, he was just a man who needed help, and she had helped him without question or hesitation. It had been a long time since anyone had looked at Vincent Torino and seen just a human being in need. Now, because of her kindness, because of her quick thinking and brave heart, she was in danger. The kind of danger that an 8-year-old girl shouldn't even know existed, let alone have to face. Vincent closed his eyes and made a promise to himself, to her, to whatever God might be listening. Maya Deluca had saved his life tonight. Now he was going to spend however long it took to save hers. 3 days after the incident at Mama Rosa's, Carlo Benedetti sat in the back room of his social club, staring at grainy security footage on a laptop screen. The image was poor quality, but clear enough to show a small girl with dark hair injecting something into Vincent Torino's leg. Carlo rewound the footage for the 5th time, his jaw tightening with each viewing. A kid, he said to his nephew Sal, who stood nervously beside the desk. Our carefully planned hit was ruined by a kid with an EpiPen. Sal shifted his weight from foot to foot. We couldn't have predicted it, Uncle Carlo. The cook did exactly what we paid him to do. Used the peanut oil, made sure Torino got a good dose. How were we supposed to know some little girl would be carrying emergency medicine? Carlo slammed the laptop shut. Because it's our job to know these things. Because when you're trying to kill Vincent Torino, you don't leave anything to chance. He stood up, pacing to the window that overlooked the narrow street. Now he knows it was us. He knows we tried to poison him, and he's going to come for us. Maybe not, Sal said hopefully. Maybe he'll think it was just an accident, bad luck with the kitchen. Vincent Torino doesn't believe in accidents. Carlo cut him off. He's probably already figured out we paid the cook. Which means he knows we're at war now, whether we wanted it or not. Carlo turned back to face his nephew, his expression cold. But there's one thing he doesn't know yet. He doesn't know that we know about the girl. Sal's eyes widened. You want to go after a kid? I want to send a message, Carlo said. Vincent thinks he's untouchable. Thinks his reputation protects him. But everyone has something they care about. Something that makes them vulnerable. That little girl saved his life. That makes her important to him, whether he admits it or not. But she's just a witness, Sal protested. She doesn't know anything, Carlo smiled. But there was no warmth in it. She doesn't have to know anything. She just has to disappear. When Vincent realizes that his guardian angel is gone, he'll understand that nobody is safe from us. Not him. Not anyone who helps him. Sal looked uncomfortable. I don't know, Uncle Carlo. Hurting kids, that's not our style. It brings too much heat, too much attention. Our style wasn't working, Carlo snapped. Vincent is still breathing. Still controlling half the waterfront. Still making us look weak. Sometimes, you have to adapt. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. I'm calling Tony Ricci. He owes me a favor, and he's not squeamish about these things. Meanwhile, across the city, Vincent was having a very different conversation. He sat in his office above the legitimate shipping company that served as his front, listening as Marco briefed him on the Deluca family. Giuseppe and Rosa Deluca, both Italian immigrants, been here about 15 years, Marco read from a file. They own Mama Rosa's diner, barely breaking even most months. One daughter, Maya, 8 years old, attends St. Catherine's Elementary. The kid's got severe food allergies, carries multiple EpiPens, honor roll student. Vincent nodded, absorbing the information. Where do they live? Small apartment above a bakery on Mulberry Street. Not the best neighborhood, but not the worst either. Working class, mostly families. Security? Marco shook his head. None. Why would they need it? They're nobody, Vincent. Just regular people trying to make a living. They're not nobody anymore, Vincent said quietly. The moment that little girl saved my life, she became somebody. And the Benedettis are going to figure that out soon enough. As if summoned by his words, Vincent's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and saw a text from one of his informants in the Benedetti organization. They know about the girl. Moving tonight. Vincent's blood went cold. Marco, how fast can you get people to Mulberry Street? 20 minutes. Maybe 15 if I call in favors. Why? Vincent was already reaching for his coat. Because we're about to find out if we're fast enough to save an 8-year-old's life. Maya was doing her homework at the kitchen table when she noticed the new crossing guard. She'd walked the same route to and from school for 3 years, and Mrs. Patterson had always been there at the corner of Mulberry and 3rd, helping kids cross safely. But today there was a different man, younger, with kind eyes and a smile that seemed genuine when he waved at her. Mama. She called to her mother, who was preparing dinner. Where's Mrs. Patterson? Rosa looked up from the stove. Who? The crossing guard. There's a new man there today. Her mother shrugged. Maybe she's sick. These things happen, Karamia. Maya nodded, but something nagged at her. Mrs. Patterson had never missed a day in 3 years, not even when it snowed. And the new man seemed too interested in her specifically, watching her walk home with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. The next morning brought another surprise. Her regular teacher, Miss Rodriguez, was absent, replaced by a substitute named Mr. Chen, who seemed to know an awful lot about Maya's medical condition for someone who had supposedly just met her. Maya, he said during lunch, I understand you carry emergency medication. That's very responsible of you. She nodded, unsure why he was bringing it up. If you ever feel unsafe, or if anything unusual happens, you can always come to me, he continued. Sometimes adults notice things that children miss. There was something in his tone that made Maya pay attention. It wasn't the usual teacher speak about safety and following rules. This felt more urgent, more personal. That afternoon, walking home from school, Maya noticed the new crossing guard again, but this time she also noticed the man in the blue sedan who had been parked across from the school when she left and was now parked across from her apartment building. She'd developed a habit of noticing things, of cataloging details that might be important later. It was a survival skill she'd learned from managing her allergies, but it applied to more than just food. She was about to enter her building when the crossing guard appeared beside her. Maya, he said quietly, don't go upstairs yet. She froze, her hand on the door handle. How do you know my name? Because someone sent me to keep you safe, he said. And right now, going upstairs isn't safe. Maya's heart started beating faster. Safe from what? Before he could answer, she heard the sound of footsteps on the stairs inside the building, heavy and deliberate. The crossing guard's hand moved to his jacket, and Maya caught a glimpse of something metallic underneath. This way, he said, guiding her away from the door. Stay close to me. They walked quickly down the street, and Maya noticed that the man in the blue sedan was following them. But she also noticed something else. A black SUV had appeared from nowhere and was now blocking the sedan's path. Men in suits were getting out of both vehicles, and Maya realized she was in the middle of something much bigger than she understood. What's happening? She whispered. Some bad people want to hurt you because you helped someone, the crossing guard said. But some good people are making sure that doesn't happen. Maya thought about the man from the restaurant, the one she'd saved with her EpiPen. This is about him, isn't it? The man who was allergic to nuts. The crossing guard looked surprised. You're a smart kid. Is he one of the good people or one of the bad people? The crossing guard was quiet for a moment. That's complicated, he said finally. But when it comes to keeping you safe, he's definitely one of the good people. They reached a small park where Maya often played after school. The crossing guard led her to a bench and sat down beside her, his eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. My name is Detective Frank Morrison, he said. I work with the police, but right now I'm working with someone else to make sure you stay safe. The man from the restaurant? Frank nodded. His name is Vincent. And yes, he's the reason you're in danger, but he's also the reason you're going to be okay. Maya processed this information with the same methodical approach she used for everything else. So the bad people want to hurt him? That's right. And he's trying to protect me because I saved his life? That's right, too. Maya was quiet for a moment, thinking, are my parents safe? They're fine. Vincent has people watching them too, just in case. How long is this going to last? Frank looked at her with something like admiration. Most kids your age would be crying right now. Crying doesn't solve problems, Maya said matter-of-factly. I learned that when I was 4 and almost died from a peanut. Crying just wastes time you could be using to fix things. Frank smiled despite the seriousness of the situation. Vincent said you were special. I'm starting to see what he meant. As if on cue, a familiar figure appeared at the edge of the park. Vincent Torino walked toward them slowly, his hands visible and empty, his expression careful. He looked different in daylight, Maya thought. Less mysterious. More tired. "Hello, Maya," he said, stopping a few feet away from the bench. "Hello, Mr. Vincent," she replied politely. He sat down on the bench across from them, maintaining distance but close enough to talk. "I owe you an apology," he said, "and an explanation." Maya waited, the way she'd learned to wait when adults were trying to figure out how to tell her something difficult. "I'm not a good man," Vincent said finally. "I do things that hurt people, and I have enemies who want to hurt me back. When you saved my life the other night, you got caught in the middle of something that has nothing to do with you." "But everything to do with you," Maya said. "Yes, and now, the bad people want to hurt me to hurt you." "Yes," Maya nodded, as if this made perfect sense to her. "So what are you going to do about it?" Vincent looked surprised by the directness of her question. "I'm going to make sure they can't hurt you. Ever." "How?" "By making it clear that anyone who touches you will have to answer to me, and everyone who works for me. By making the cost of hurting you so high that even my enemies won't think it's worth it." Maya considered this. "Will that work?" "It has to work," Vincent said simply. They sat in silence for a moment, watching other children play on the swings and slides. Normal children, Maya thought, who didn't have to worry about food allergies, or crossing guards who carried guns, or men in expensive suits who owed them their lives. "I have a question," Maya said finally. "Okay. Are you going to hurt the people who want to hurt me?" Vincent was quiet for a long time. "Would that bother you?" Maya thought about it seriously. "I don't like the idea of people getting hurt. But I also don't like the idea of me getting hurt. And if they're trying to hurt me just to hurt you, then they're not very nice people." "No," Vincent agreed. "They're not." "So I guess," Maya said slowly, "I'd rather you stop them than let them stop me." Vincent looked at her with something that might have been respect. "You're going to be okay, Maya. I promise you that." "I know," she said simply. "Because you owe me, and you seem like the kind of person who pays his debts." Vincent smiled, and for the first time since she'd met him, it reached his eyes. "You're absolutely right about that." As the sun began to set over the park, Maya realized that her life had changed in ways she was only beginning to understand. She was no longer just a little girl with food allergies who helped her parents run a restaurant. She was someone important to someone dangerous, which made her dangerous too in a way. But she wasn't afraid. Vincent Torino might not be a good man, but he was a man who kept his promises, and Detective Morrison seemed like someone she could trust. And somewhere in the city, her parents were safe, because people were watching over them. Maya had learned early that the world was full of things that could hurt you if you weren't careful. But she'd also learned that there were people who would help you if you helped them first. It wasn't the kind of lesson they taught in school, but it was the kind that might keep her alive.